An old canine German Shepherd waited 10 years for him to return. What happened next will shock you and restore your faith in the unbreakable bonds between heroes and their four-legged partners. Get ready for a story that will show you the true meaning of loyalty, sacrifice, and love that transcends time itself. Rex had been the most decorated canine officer in the history of the Denver Police Department, but at 13 years old, the magnificent German Shepherd was facing the reality that all working dogs must eventually confront. His partnership with Sergeant Michael Thompson was coming to an end. Michael, 42 years old and a 20-year veteran of the force, had been Rex's handler for the dog's entire 8-year career. Together, they had been an unstoppable team, credited with over 300 drug busts, 150 suspect apprehensions, and countless lives saved. Rex wasn't just Michael's working partner. He was his best friend, his confidant, and the reason Michael looked forward to coming to work every single day. "One more month, buddy," Michael whispered to Rex as they prepared for what would be their final patrol together on a crisp October morning in 2013. "Then it's retirement for both of us. We've earned it." Rex's once dark muzzle was now completely gray, and his movements had slowed considerably from the arthritis that plagued his hips and shoulders, but his amber eyes still burned with the intelligence and dedication that had made him legendary among his fellow officers. The call came in at 2:47 p.m. Armed robbery in progress at First National Bank downtown, with hostages involved. It was exactly the kind of high-stakes situation that Rex and Michael had handled dozens of times before, but something felt different about this one. As they arrived at the scene, Rex seemed more alert than he had been in months, as if he sensed that this mission would be special. "We've got 3 suspects inside with at least 5 hostages," Captain Sarah Williams briefed Michael as they established their position. "SWAT is 15 minutes out, but we can't wait. They're threatening to start killing people." Michael looked down at Rex, who was already focusing intently on the bank entrance, his nose working to gather information about what they were facing inside. Despite his age, Rex's instincts were still razor sharp. "You ready for one last dance, old friend?" Michael asked, checking Rex's tactical vest and ensuring his radio collar was functioning properly. Rex's tail wagged once, their signal that he was ready for action. What happened next would become the stuff of legend in law enforcement circles. As Michael and Rex entered the bank through a side entrance, they moved with the precision and coordination that only comes from years of perfect partnership. Rex immediately located all 3 suspects through scent detection, communicating their positions to Michael through subtle body language that the officer could read like a book. The takedown was flawless. Rex's distraction allowed Michael to apprehend 2 suspects without firing a shot, while the third surrendered when faced with the intimidating presence of the legendary K9's team. All hostages were rescued safely, and what could have been a tragic situation ended with no injuries to civilians or officers. But as they left the bank that day, neither Michael nor Rex knew that this perfect ending to their partnership was about to become the beginning of the most heartbreaking separation either of them had ever experienced. The phone call that changed everything came 3 days after Rex's retirement ceremony, where the old German Shepherd had been honored with medals and treats by his fellow officers who respected him as much as any human colleague. Michael was at home, watching Rex sleep peacefully in his favorite spot by the fireplace, when his phone rang with news that would shatter both their worlds. "Michael, this is Dr. Patricia Rodriguez from Denver General," the voice on the other end said carefully. "I need you to come in immediately. Your blood work from last week showed some abnormalities that require urgent discussion." At Denver General Hospital, Dr. Rodriguez, a 55-year-old oncologist with 20 years of experience delivering difficult news, sat across from Michael with the expression that all cancer patients learn to recognize. The diagnosis was devastating. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, advanced and aggressive, with a prognosis that gave Michael perhaps 6 months to live. "I'm so sorry, Michael," Dr. Rodriguez said gently. "We caught this very late. The cancer has already spread to your liver and lymph nodes. We can try chemotherapy to buy some time, but..." Michael heard the words, but his mind immediately went to Rex. The old dog had given his entire life to serving alongside Michael, and now, just as they were supposed to begin enjoying their retirement together, everything was falling apart. "How long do I have?" Michael asked quietly, already knowing he needed to make arrangements for Rex's care. With aggressive treatment, possibly 8 to 10 months. Without treatment, maybe 3 to 4 months. The decision to undergo chemotherapy wasn't about Michael's own survival. He had already accepted his fate. It was about buying enough time to find the perfect home for Rex. Someone who would understand that this wasn't just any dog, but a hero who deserved to live out his golden years surrounded by love and respect. But finding the right placement for a 13-year-old retired K9 proved more challenging than Michael had anticipated. Most families wanted younger dogs, and Rex's specialized training and strong bond with Michael made him seem unsuitable for typical pet ownership. "He's never known any other life," Michael explained to potential adopters. "Rex has spent 8 years protecting and serving. He needs someone who understands what that means." As Michael's condition deteriorated over the following months, Rex seemed to sense that something was terribly wrong. The old dog rarely left Michael's side, providing comfort and companionship during the difficult days of chemotherapy and the painful nights when cancer made sleep impossible. "I can't bear the thought of leaving him," Michael confided to his sister Jennifer during one of his hospital stays. "Rex has been loyal to me for 8 years. How can I abandon him when he needs me most?" Jennifer, a 38-year-old nurse who had watched her brother's partnership with Rex evolve over the years, made a promise that would define the next decade of Rex's life. "I'll take care of him, Michael. I promise Rex will always have a home." Michael Thompson passed away on a quiet Tuesday morning in March 2014, surrounded by family and, most importantly, with Rex lying faithfully beside his hospital bed. The old German Shepherd seemed to understand that his partner was leaving him, and he rested his graying muzzle on Michael's hand as the man who had been the center of his world for 8 years took his final breath. Jennifer Thompson, true to her promise, immediately took Rex into her home in suburban Denver. At 38, she was a pediatric nurse with 2 teenage children, 15-year-old Emma and 13-year-old David, who had grown up knowing Uncle Michael's dog and were eager to provide Rex with the loving home he deserved. But Rex's grief was profound and heartbreaking to witness. The old dog, who had been trained to be strong and stoic in any situation, seemed to lose his will to live after Michael's death. He stopped eating regularly, spent hours staring out the window as if waiting for his partner to return, and showed little interest in the affection that Jennifer and her children tried to provide. "He's mourning," Dr. Lisa Martinez, Rex's veterinarian, explained during a checkup 6 weeks after Michael's death. "Dogs form incredibly strong bonds with their handlers, especially working dogs who spend every day together for years. Rex is experiencing genuine grief." Jennifer was determined to help Rex heal, but she quickly realized that the old dog had specific routines and expectations that were tied to his years of service with Michael. Every morning at exactly 6 a.m., Rex would go to the front door and wait, his tail wagging hopefully as he anticipated the arrival of the patrol car that would never come. "He thinks Michael is just on a long assignment," Jennifer observed, watching Rex maintain his vigil by the door. "He doesn't understand that Michael isn't coming back." The Thompson family developed a routine around Rex's unwavering hope. They learned to work around his morning watch, respecting the dignity of a dog who had served his community with honor and deserved to grieve in his own way. Emma, now 16 and wise beyond her years, became Rex's primary caretaker. She walked him daily, brushed his graying coat, and most importantly, talked to him about Michael in a way that seemed to bring the old dog comfort. "Uncle Michael loved you so much," she would tell Rex during their evening brushing sessions. "He's not coming back, but he wanted us to take care of you because you're family." As months turned into years, Rex's physical health remained remarkably good for a dog his age, but his emotional state never fully recovered. He maintained his morning vigil, never giving up hope that Michael would return. Jennifer and her family accepted this as part of who Rex was, a loyal partner who would wait forever if necessary. What they didn't know was that Rex's decade-long wait would eventually lead to a discovery that would shock everyone who had ever known Michael Thompson. 10 years had passed since Michael's death, and Rex, now 23 years old, was ancient by German Shepherd standards. His once powerful frame was frail, his steps careful and deliberate, and his hearing had deteriorated significantly. But every morning, without fail, the old dog still made his way to the front door to wait for Michael's return. Jennifer, now 48 and graying herself, had never stopped being amazed by Rex's unwavering loyalty. Her children, Emma and David, had grown up and moved away for college, but they always returned to visit Grandpa Rex, as they had come to call him. On a cold December morning in 2024, Jennifer was preparing Rex's breakfast when the doorbell rang. It was unusually early for visitors, and Rex, despite his age and hearing loss, immediately perked up with an alertness she hadn't seen in years. At the door stood a young man, perhaps 25 years old, with familiar dark hair and the same striking blue eyes that Jennifer remembered from her brother Michael. He was wearing a military uniform with sergeant stripes, and his nervous expression suggested he wasn't sure he was welcome. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you," the young man said, his voice catching slightly. "My name is James Thompson. I think Michael Thompson was my father." Jennifer's world stopped spinning. Michael had never mentioned having a son, and she thought she knew everything about her brother's life. But looking at this young man, the family resemblance was undeniable. "I was born in 1999, James continued, seeing Jennifer's shock. "My mother, Lisa Carter, she knew Michael before he became a police officer. She never told him about me because she thought it would complicate his career." James explained that his mother had recently passed away from cancer, and while going through her belongings, he had found letters from Michael, photos of them together, and most importantly, an address with a note that said, "If anything happens to me, make sure James knows about his father." "She told me I had a father who was a police officer with a dog named Rex," James said, his eyes scanning the house hopefully. "She said he was a good man who would have loved me if he had known I existed." Jennifer's heart was pounding as she processed this information, but it was Rex's reaction that convinced her this young man was telling the truth. The old dog, who had been skeptical of strangers for years, approached James with his tail wagging for the first time since Michael's death. Rex sniffed James carefully, and then something extraordinary happened. The ancient German Shepherd began whimpering with excitement, his arthritic body trembling as he recognized something familiar in this stranger's scent, something that reminded him of Michael. "He knows," Jennifer whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Rex knows you're Michael's son." James knelt down, and Rex, for the first time in 10 years, allowed someone other than the Thompson family to touch him. The old dog pressed against James, and in that moment, everyone present understood that this wasn't just a coincidence. It was the answer to a decade of faithful waiting. Jennifer insisted on DNA testing to confirm what her heart and Rex's reaction had already told her. James Thompson was indeed Michael's son. While they waited for the results, James shared the story of his life, painting a picture of a young man who had grown up wondering about the father he had never known. "My mom said she met Michael when they were both 22, James explained as he sat on the floor with Rex, who had not left his side since their introduction. They were together for about 6 months, but she was scared to tell him about the pregnancy because he had just joined the police academy, and she didn't want to derail his dreams. Lisa Carter had been a waitress at a diner that Michael frequented during his early days as a rookie officer. Their brief relationship had been intense, but complicated by their different life goals. When Lisa discovered she was pregnant, she made the difficult decision to move to another state without telling Michael, believing that raising a child would interfere with his calling to serve and protect. She followed his career from a distance, James continued, his voice thick with emotion. She kept newspaper clippings about his commendations, photos of him and effects from the police department website, She was so proud of him, but she never found the courage to tell him about me. Jennifer listened to this story with a mixture of heartbreak and anger. Her brother had died never knowing he had a son, and this young man had grown up without the father who would have loved him unconditionally. Michael would have been an amazing dad, Jennifer said, watching Rex rest his head contentedly on James's lap. He always said that Rex was like his child, but I know he would have chosen a human family if he had known about you. The DNA results, when they arrived 3 days later, confirmed what everyone already knew. James Thompson was Michael's biological son. More importantly, the young man had inherited more than just his father's DNA. He had also inherited Michael's sense of duty and service to others. James had followed in his father's footsteps without even knowing it, serving 2 tours in Afghanistan as a military dog handler. He had worked with German Shepherds in explosive detection, unknowingly walking the same path that his father had traveled with Rex. I've always felt drawn to working with dogs, James told Jennifer as they looked through Michael's photo albums together. My commanding officers said I had a natural gift for it, like it was in my blood. Rex seemed to understand that James represented a continuation of his partnership with Michael. The old dog, who had been lethargic and disinterested in life for years, suddenly showed renewed energy when James was around. It was as if finding Michael's son had given Rex a new purpose, to bridge the gap between the father he had lost and the son who had never known him. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come, hidden in a sealed letter that Michael had left with his attorney, to be opened only under very specific circumstances. Michael's attorney, 60-year-old Robert Harrison, had been holding a sealed envelope for over 10 years, with specific instructions that it should only be opened if anyone ever came forward claiming to be Michael's child and could provide DNA proof. When Jennifer called him about James, Harrison immediately scheduled a meeting that would change everything. Michael was more perceptive than any of us realized, Harrison explained as he handed the sealed letter to James. He suspected he might have a child somewhere, and he wanted to be prepared. With trembling hands, James opened the envelope that had been waiting for him for a decade. Inside was a handwritten letter in Michael's careful script, along with legal documents that would shock everyone present. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you found your way to Rex and my family, the letter began. I always had a feeling that Lisa might have been pregnant when she left Denver, but I respected her decision not to tell me. I want you to know that if I had known about you, I would have moved heaven and earth to be part of your life. The letter went on to explain that Michael had set aside money in a trust fund specifically for a child he might never meet. Over the years, the fund had grown to over $200,000, earning interest as it waited for James to claim it. But more important than the money, the letter continued, I want you to know about Rex. He has been my partner, my best friend, and the closest thing to a son I thought I would ever have. If you're reading this, it means Rex is old now, and probably nearing the end of his life. Please know that taking care of him in his final days would be the greatest gift you could give me. James was sobbing as he read the final paragraph. I hope you've chosen to serve others as I tried to do. If you're anything like me, you'll understand that Rex isn't just a dog. He's a hero who deserves to be honored and loved. Please help him cross the rainbow bridge, knowing that his partner's son is there to hold his paw. Jennifer was amazed by her brother's foresight and emotional intelligence. Even in death, Michael had found a way to care for both Rex and the son he had never known. There's one more thing, Harrison said, producing another document. Michael left very specific instructions about Rex's final arrangements. He wanted Rex to be buried beside his grave when the time comes, and he wanted his son to be the one to make that decision. James looked down at Rex, who was lying peacefully at his feet, and understood that his father had given him the opportunity to complete a circle of love that had been broken by death and separation. The old dog had waited 10 years not just for Michael to return, but for James to arrive and fulfill the destiny that had been written long before either of them understood its significance. Rex lived for 6 more months after James's arrival, and they were the happiest months the old dog had experienced since Michael's death. James moved to Denver permanently, using his father's trust fund to buy a house near Jennifer's so that Rex could spend his final days surrounded by family. The transformation in Rex was remarkable. The old dog, who had spent a decade in quiet mourning, suddenly rediscovered his joy for life. He followed James everywhere, slept beside his bed, and even attempted to play with toys for the first time in years. It was as if finding Michael's son had given Rex permission to finally live again, instead of simply existing. James, meanwhile, was discovering the father he had never known through Rex's memories and behaviors. The old dog still responded to hand signals that Michael had taught him, still performed the same pre-patrol routines, and still carried himself with the dignity of a retired hero. "He's teaching me about Dad," James told Jennifer during one of their evening walks. "Every day, I learn something new about what kind of man Michael was by watching how Rex remembers him." James used his military dog handling experience to ensure that Rex's final months were filled with purpose and respect. He took Rex to visit the police station where the old dog was greeted as a returning legend. Rex's former colleagues, those who were still alive and working, came to pay their respects to the dog who had been a legend in their department. When Rex's health finally began to fail in late spring, James made the decision that Michael would have wanted. On a beautiful May morning, with Rex lying peacefully in James's arms and Jennifer holding his paw, Dr. Martinez helped the old hero cross the Rainbow Bridge with the dignity that his years of service had earned. Rex was buried beside Michael's grave in a ceremony attended by dozens of police officers, both active and retired. James spoke at the service, sharing the story of how Rex had waited 10 years to complete his final mission, reuniting a father and son who had been separated by circumstances beyond their control. "Rex didn't just serve my father," James said, his voice strong despite his tears. "He served all of us by showing us what loyalty, faithfulness, and unconditional love really look like. He waited 10 years to make sure that Michael's legacy would continue through me." After the service, James established the Michael and Rex Thompson Foundation, dedicated to supporting retired K-9 officers and their handlers. The foundation's mission statement, written by James and approved by Jennifer, read, "In honor of partnerships that transcend death and love, that knows no boundaries of time or space." Rex's headstone, placed beside Michael's, bears a simple inscription: "Rex Thompson, faithful partner, patient teacher, bridge between worlds." He waited 10 years and completed his final mission. Every year on the anniversary of their reunion, James visits both graves to thank his father and his father's dog for proving that some bonds are stronger than death, and that love always finds a way home. Rex's decade-long vigil and eventual reunion with James Thompson has become one of the most celebrated stories in law enforcement history, demonstrating the incredible emotional intelligence and loyalty that working dogs possess. The story has inspired changes in how police departments handle the retirement and end-of-life care for K-9 officers, with many agencies now creating programs to ensure that these heroes receive the honor and care they deserve. James Thompson completed his military service and now works as a K-9 trainer for the Denver Police Department, carrying on his father's legacy while honoring Rex's memory. He has never married, dedicating his life to training the next generation of police dogs and their handlers, always sharing Rex's story as an example of the profound bonds that can form between humans and their four-legged partners. Jennifer Thompson has become the unofficial historian of the Michael and Rex partnership, maintaining a detailed archive of their achievements and the impact they had on their community. She often speaks at law enforcement conferences about the importance of supporting officers and their K-9 partners both during their active service and in retirement. The Michael and Rex Thompson Foundation has provided support for over 150 retired K-9 officers and has funded research into the emotional needs of working dogs after their service careers end. James's work has helped establish protocols for ensuring that retired police dogs receive appropriate mental health support and social interaction to help them transition from active duty to civilian life. Most remarkably, DNA testing has revealed that James shares more than just physical traits with his father. He also has an almost supernatural ability to communicate with and train German Shepherds, suggesting that some gifts truly are passed down through generations. If Rex and James's story moved you, remember that thousands of retired working dogs need our support and recognition for their years of faithful service. Subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and share this story with someone who believes in the power of loyalty and love. Consider supporting organizations that care for retired police and military dogs, and remember that the bonds formed between handlers and their canine partners are sacred relationships that deserve our respect and protection. Rex's 10-year wait reminds us that love knows no boundaries of time, death, or circumstance, and that sometimes the most important missions are completed not through action but through patience, faith, and an unshakable belief that love will always find its way home.